Hey, this is Dennis, and welcome to another episode of the Grounded Reason podcast, where Joel and I sit down and we talk about things like cord cutting, internet, stuff. Tubes. Lots of tubes.
Lots of tubes.
Today, we have a bit of a potpourri of cord cutting and internet topics to
Related
discuss.
topics.
Because first, we're going to talk about a recent cable. The ACA is not the Healthcare Act, but the American Cable Association.
Yep.
It's a lobby group,
Yep.
and what pretty much the CEO, that the top guy, basically just gave a whole interview where he said that cable TV is like failing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, we were talking about this like over text earlier this week.
right, yeah. And I was kind of surprised because usually those guys are very like fingers in the ears, everything's fine.
Do you want to hop into that right now?
Well, we will. I mean, I just but
Or you're doing the table of contents?
yeah,
Let's go.
I'm giving people I mean, you went to you've done a speech class before. You say what you're going to say.
Have you listened to me?
And
I
then you-
clearly have not done a speech class.
You do. You have to let people know what you're going to say. You're going to tell them what they're going to. You're going to say what you're going to say, and then you say it, and then you say what you said.
Again, this is like a Don Draper thing. Like we're right back into it from
Right.
last week. All right, let's do it. Say what you're gonna say.
So we're going to talk about the guy at the the ACA, not the Healthcare Act, as I said, but and what he had to say about cable TV failing, and we're also going to talk about Verizon, this new streaming service. We said how they're going to be coming out like soon. They're
Yeah.
beta testing it, so we're going to get into that a bit. We're going to talk about a little bit on the AirWave, which we mentioned on an earlier show. It's an antenna that actually has a wireless networking tuner in it, so you can kind of just send the signal right to
I
your home
remember
network.
this one. This is the one I was saying is voodoo. I have no
Yes.
idea how they do it.
It is. They killed a few goats.
It's got to be.
Did a few chants, and then
It's amazing
AirWave.
technology. I don't know how they. I mean,
so then this is kind of huge. Remember how how I'm always saying the courts one day someone's going to sue one of these Kodi add-on companies,
yeah.
and the US will finally decide how they feel about streaming pirated content. That's kind of happening right
Yep.
now. Dish Network decided to take it to one of these add-on builders.
Yeah, and well, I'll save it. See, I'm learning my lesson.
Right.
I'm going to save my commentary until you get in.
Okay, and I think you also wanted to talk a little bit about some of the shenanigans that are happening with the internet access in rural America.
Yeah, so the FCC just put out a study that they do where they overlay some data that has to do with broadband and health statistics in those areas. And I forget what they call it, but for right now, we'll call it a double whammy in very rural areas that are largely economically impoverished, and them having very low levels of broadband access and very poor health statistics.
Oh, yeah.
So really interesting study.
Cool. So that's what we have on our plate today. So let's get started.
All right.
The Matthew Polka is the CEO.
Gotta love that name.
I know. So yeah, I read that too, and I'm just like, I would be so tempted to wear like the most outlandish clothing I could find.
Oh, if you were him?
If I had that last name.
Yeah. Well, if I was the head of a gigantic lobbying group and I had that kind of money, I would absolutely
I would.
give me that kind of money, Dennis, and I will lose
Yeah.
all respect for the law.
Peeing in
And,
jars in a
yeah,
hotel room, rich.
Exactly. I will be Howard Hughes.
So he said, and basically he said, quote, as a business, cable TV is failing.
Yeah. And this was really interesting because, like, as you go through deeper into the article, he talks about, like, basically and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it's like the content providing piece of their business model is just losing money.
Yeah, because it's weird because what I don't get, or because those companies can go out straight to the consumer,
Yeah.
and turn a profit.
Yeah.
But when they run it through this bundle mechanism that they like to do with cable TV is like they're not treading water right now when it comes to these bundles. When what they're paying the subscriber, a lot of it has to do with sports.
Yeah.
Is really what's killing them. But still, it's just like you figure at some point that they would kind of sit down at the table and work all this out.
Well, and so that's exactly like the line of thinking that I was going through when I was reading this. It's basically that, like, so the content providing market, right? As we've talked about ad nauseum, there's just a lot of competition, right? Like some of the best shows, quote unquote, on television are not going through normal cable channels. They're coming over Netflix or Hulu or Amazon and so on. And they're fantastic. And some of the other great shows that come via cable, your AMCs and so on.
Yeah, you got
you can get a couple of days later, and you can just buy them outright through Amazon or whatever. So there's just a ton of price competition. Their other business model, which is, largely, well, I guess there's three, right, within the bundle. There's the VoIP piece, and there's a fair amount of competition there as well.
Yeah. Well, and there's also, there's a lot of independent voice over IP companies, because all you need it's like streaming. All you need is an internet connection, and then you can sit there and just run a voice phone line over top of that internet connection.
Exactly. So really what they have, and so putting on my, financial analyst hat, right? I would not be surprised if
Joel's actually wearing a hat that says financial analyst.
Oh, I have a hat. I wouldn't be surprised if in a year or two, if this trend keeps up, you don't start seeing pressure from like Wall Street to say, break this company up. And this is not uncommon, right? Like a company will actually spin off a portion, right? And set it under a separate ticker. And then, it's a wholly owned subsidiary or it's a completely separate entity, whichever. So I could see them taking the content providing portion and split it off and let the other portion, the ISP portion of the company that basically functions as a utility, sit there and just crank out a 5% dividend for eternity. Right. And honestly, it's a pretty smart move, right? Like they would unlock all that value, and honestly, their stock price would go up.
Well, that's the thing that I don't get is if you really want to succeed, you specialize. You sit there and you specialize to your business. And when you're sitting there and you got your hand, like, I mean, you have different divisions and everything, but there's a lot of in a company that those, and I'm talking about your Comcast and your Charters and companies that big, change and innovation move slow.
Yeah, and so they're just not going to be able to compete long term as long as the market stays competitive. And this is what worries me about the net neutrality, but we'll save it for later.
Right.
Stuff. As long as the market stays competitive, well, Netflix and Hulu, etc., are going to just take their lunch money. And it's just going to keep happening, right? And all people are going to do is buy the commodity good that they have a monopoly on, which is, the ISP, right? So just like a electricity utility, right? It just would be heavily regulated, relatively stable, relatively low earnings per share, but a very high dividend and a very stable dividend. And that company would just crank it. It would be a cash machine, right?
Yeah. And the like with video, like this is the funny part about this business. And you can just see it's just a like I know I'm going to use his words. It's a failing business model.
Yeah.
Have you heard of Mediacom? There's a cable company called Mediacom out there.
No.
Right now, they're the 5th largest company. They have 800,000 subscribers. and they're number 5
Wow.
in cable. So he said that we used to be the 8th. Larson is his name. He's the VP.
Yeah.
He's a VP there. He said we used to be the 8th biggest cable company in the U.S., but because of these mergers and acquisitions, we keep moving up without even doing anything.
Yeah.
And that's what's happening. It's just like they're winnowing out, like, these companies, they're merging, they're coming together. And it's when you're the 5th biggest company in a business where pretty much almost everyone has cable TV, like 93 million households have cable TV, or 95, something like that. To only have 800,000 of those and be the 5th biggest company.
Yeah, it's like when they talk about like military powers in the world,
Yeah.
right? There's basically number 1, and then there's, number 2 and 3, and then there's a really dramatic drop off to where, like, if you and I were to go rent a boat and put it out in the Chesapeake Bay, we'd have like the 13th largest navy in the world, right? Like, it's just like that kind of drop off, right? Like they'd be like, we are the 13th largest navy.
Yeah,
let's go take over wherever. Right? So it's one of those things with all of this market consolidation. It screams utility.
Right.
Right.
And it's like not a day goes by where there's like some network that's threatening a blackout because they're not getting the fee that they want from the provider. I mean, and it's rampant. It's there was a situation in LA where they couldn't watch Laker games for a while.
Oh, and that went over great, I'm sure. In the, I think it was the late 80s, there was like a whole rash of these types of breakups of company where it wasn't forced by the government. It wasn't an antitrust action, right?
Right.
It was typically hostile takeover. And so you'd have someone, right, or set of investors that would buy up a whole ton of shares, and they would force management to either change what its direction was, right, or change management.
So it's like the threat, like you buy enough of a company where it's like, hey, you're going to lose your job.
Yeah, I own the company, right? I own enough to actually decide part of the strategy. And then it becomes like a real argument between the board and the executive management and the shareholders, right? And there's enough heavy hitters in all sides to where something's got to change.
Right.
And so the strategy of just gobbling up their competitors is clearly not working, because what they're gobbling up is just more of the ISP market. They're not gobbling up the Netflixes and the Hulus and so on,
right?
Which is the part that's losing the money, right? They go out and they buy, what was the company you were talking about?
Mediacom?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they go buy Mediacom, and that gets them 800,000 subscribers.
Which is a drop in the bucket for
and it wouldn't do
Comcast.
anything for the content providing market,
right?
Or it would barely do anything.
Yeah, and that's the situation they're in now. It's like, who is left to buy?
Right.
When like the 5th biggest provider is only 800,000 subscribers strong. You're really kind of running out of like
you're down to the top 4.
You actually
right?
you actually have to start making a decent product at some point and not just keep buying what's out there and bringing it in.
And that's my argument. And I think it's inevitable, right? Like it's going to happen as long as the market for providing content stays free and fair. You will just see this happen. They will become utilities.
Yeah, and that's what they say in this article. It's one of our favorites, Ars Technica. They're basically all these, your 4th, 5th, and beyond, market shareholders. They're looking towards internet business right now.
Yeah.
They're sitting there saying, streaming video is the future. We're really just going to kind of tread water with our video because they're losing money. Really, a lot of these companies are just losing money on video right now, and they're just going to kind of just become internet companies and see what happens.
Not to go again back to the late 80s, but like straight up GE Jack Welch, right? If you're not number 1 or 2 in the market you're playing in, and you're a conglomerate, you should shed it. Right, you should get rid of that function.
Yeah, because then you could specialize and concentrate all your energy
where you're number one or number two.
Right.
Right. And you can actually compete.
Yeah. But the funny thing is the way regulations are working, it's kind of like to win that game, you have to do the opposite.
Yeah.
So,
well, and that's what worries me is like, okay, so this is working pretty well right now from a consumer perspective because we're getting tons of good content relatively cheap.
If you live in an urban area.
If you let me caveat that, right? Like if you live in an area where you can get enough MIPS to actually do something with it, right? But if you don't, right, then that's different. We'll get to that later.
Yeah. We actually have a bit of a story on that too.
But if you do, right, you're getting lots of good content. So I wonder, like, what happens in the next couple of years when the freeness of the market, because of net neutrality being rolled back, hopefully not, but potentially, what does that do to things? Like, does that slow this bleed that's going on?
Because that's
in
what's
the
going to
content
happen.
provider?
Let's just say, like, they get their way and ISPs can throttle or whatever. It's not going to benefit anyone. It's just going to slow down progress and innovation.
Yep.
So,
yeah, because right now all of the progress in what we think of as the traditional, let's call it, cable market, and I say it specifically that way to encompass both the content providing and the ISP market, right? So what we think of as traditional cable, right? All of the innovation is happening, or the majority of the innovation is happening on the content provider side.
Right.
Right?
Well, that's like anything. I mean, it's an infrastructure piece.
Yeah.
No one uses the internet if there's nothing on the internet.
Well, in people who argue about infrastructure and like, yeah, we need to innovate. Yes, absolutely. But like, that is going to happen with some level of competition, even with the number of ISPs we have, right?
Right.
Because it doesn't need as much to change, right? Like, it's like the electricity market, right? Like, again, to use that as an analogy, our rates will get a little bit lower, we'll get a little more stable electricity and so on over time. But what really is innovative is what we do with the electricity.
Right. Well, yeah, I guess I kind of look at it like the road analogy. I like the road analogy for the internet.
I know you like the road analogy.
Because it works really well.
It does work well.
Because let's say you have a road that, I don't know, goes to one store. All right. There's like, from you go somewhat of a town to a store.
Yep.
That road will get some maintenance because it's getting some use. But if you have a highway that hits like 50 stores from that town, all the investment and road upkeep and like, adding lanes and things, that you're making that road more robust is going to go into, all the funds are going to go into that highway, not the one road that goes to the one store.
Right.
And it's basically saying like the more stuff you can access on the internet, that is really what drives the infrastructure
improvement
investment.
Yeah.
So
I'll buy that.
So I think, I mean, and we've talked about this ad nauseum. It's just like, it's because the current FCC stance is let's make it easy for the ISPs, when really you want to, the innovation is going to happen on what services the edge providers give. If people want to use those services, then they'll build up their internet infrastructure.
Yeah, and honestly, like, the more you constrain or provide the ISPs the ability to constrain what edge providers can do, the likely first candidates are all of the content providers, because that's who directly affects their bottom line, right? That's their direct competition for that entire division that, provides.
You're talking about cable
Comcast,
TV.
Yeah,
yes,
provides
cable TV
television
is in direct competition with edge
with
providers.
Netflix
Right.
or whoever.
Exactly.
Right.
And that, when we say edge providers, like when it comes to
Yeah.
content, like TV and movies, we're talking about Hulu,
But
Netflix.
my point is, like, the next group is anyone who runs afoul of the ISP for whatever reason.
Right.
It could be people like us who talk about cable companies in an unfavoring way.
Yeah, when we talk about how
way.
shitty Comcast customer service is,
Which is not.
I mean, it's hard to argue that we could. Okay, allegedly, but really,
No, I don't think you need to say allegedly. It's like, it's fairly well documented. They suck.
It is, yeah.
They
So
suck.
if we say that enough and Comcast doesn't like it, then they're like, well, screw these guys. And then they can just sit there and throttle any feed.
And that would be petty because we're
It would.
tiny.
It would.
But
But the possibility is there.
It's completely possible. So, and just to put a little bow on this topic, like, the thing I find interesting, I think it was last week, we covered how, like, all of a sudden some of the, like, you know, what do you call them? Coin-operated intellectuals.
Yes, there's lots of them out there.
yeah.
You shove some money in their wallet and,
And
they
they
write you a
write
nice
you-
paper
yeah.
to agree with your business
God, that's
model.
good work if you can get it, right?
That's
But-
pretty much all it is. Like,
Yeah.
it's to the point now where, like, anything you read where it was like some experts' names on it, just be cautious, because it's been a while since I saw. Like, there's no independent intellectual organization. There are very few anymore.
The way to do it, we've talked about this before,
Yeah.
and then we'll get back to the bow. But, like, the way to do it is if they don't put in their documentation who funded that study,
Yes.
beware.
Yeah, because if they're not mentioning where they're getting their funding from, then it's shady.
Yeah, just basically you should just disregard it,
Yeah.
right? Like, if they do it and if they disclose it,
Paid
and
for
it's,
the people who are going to profit from this paper.
yeah, exactly, right? And if they do that, I'll even give them more credit than if they don't say that, right?
Right.
Like, I'll go, all right, grain of salt, right? But if they say it, that at least gets them some. Will you turn off your phone?
Sorry. It's my wife.
It's my wife.
She's agreeing.
Yeah, exactly. That's just her hitting the dinner bell. So, anyways, what I was saying was, like, last week, I think we were saying that one of those paid for intellectuals was saying, like, you know, all of a sudden acknowledging that cord cutting is real. And then, like, now we've got the head of the lobbying group saying, yeah, cable is losing money hand over fist.
They're also predicting, because, like, we said that, like, the first quarter of 2017 was, like, the worst ever for cable. It was like 700 and some odd thousand.
That's a huge number.
Households.
Basically, that takes out number 5 in their entire industry.
Exactly. They're saying that the second quarter is going to be way worse than that.
Yeah.
So I'm only, like, they're looking at, like, a feedback loop of deceleration right now in their market. It's just, it's crazy what they're predicting. It's like cable Armageddon. They're saying they're going to be hitting the low 90s in, like, the next year.
Well, you got to think about it. Like, at any
90 million. The low 90. Yeah.
You know, it's a stock and flow problem. So by that, I mean, stock is like what you actually have, right? Like your customers you have, right, already. And flow is incoming customers.
Yeah.
Right? And they're incoming customers, I'm just assuming.
No, it's true. Like, no one
must be coming to a trickle.
Yeah, new
right?
households are just not getting cable
And
right
so
now.
if you've got some percentage of people attriting from, like, the stock, that's got to really hurt because you got no one to replace them.
It is because, like, I saw like a recent report. I think it was Lichtman did this one. He said 400,000 people ditched.
Right.
So that means
That's just straight loss because there ain't anyone coming in.
And but then, like, the 700,000, I'm not sure. Like, that's the funny thing about this is it really depends on the numbers they're using. Like, but
bottom line is not good.
It's not good either way. And considering over the turn in the first quarter, I think the number of people that you would call, like, cord cutters, people without cable,
Right.
was like close to 1 million. So that's a ton of new households that I like see no value in cable. They're just not getting it.
And my point is like, whether you're talking, whatever, 400,000 or 700,000, like that's the difference between saying all of Salt Lake City decided they weren't going to go use cable,
Right.
or all of Baltimore. And
Right.
Baltimore, is twice the size or whatever, but they're both large cities,
Exactly.
right?
Right.
They're both
Right.
a lot of people, right? So, anyways.
Yeah. I mean, and there's also been tons of reports on, like, you figure if you're losing customers hands over fist, maybe you would try to, I don't know, maybe get a little better with your service or your quality or concierge your customer. Like, give them the whole, white glove treatment.
You know what they say about insanity, man?
Is it doing the same thing?
Doing the same thing and expecting a different result.
Yeah, but it's not. It's gotten worse. Like their customer service reporting across the board, like the reports on their customer service across the board have been going down.
Well, think about it. The natural incentive of a company, right? It's got executives, it's got board members. All those people are getting paid. Like, let's not kid ourselves. Those folks are getting paid, right? So you got everything else. You've got costs that you have to pay, like your leases on the lines. You got leases on the buildings you occupy. You've got staff that you haven't laid off. Then you've got all of your various like variable costs, like, hey, the people who man your help desk. Right. Well, you start cutting corners there.
Yeah, it's a feedback loop. It's like you just start
worse and worse.
Right. And that's what's happening right now. And people are just getting fed up. And then they're like groundedreason.com has been gangbusters lately because there's so many people right now that are just interested in cutting the cord. And my traffic over the past 6 months has doubled.
Yeah.
Like on the website. It's just the amount of people right now that are just fed up with cable TV is it's reached like I thought it reached its pinnacle like a year ago. It's like double that right now.
Well, see so I have a theory. It's a pet theory. I think it's all of our, wonderful listeners out there spreading the good word.
Yeah, I hope so.
That's what I assume it is. Like
it's Christopher.
It's Christopher, the Christopher.
Yeah.
It's
Wesley
is it?
and
Is it Garrison Keeler? Is that what his name is? Where he says, all of our people are, good looking and, smarter than average. Right. Like that's our listeners. They're good looking and smarter than average. Right. Like, so I assume it's all of them talking about this, telling their friends, telling their Facebook friends, which aren't real friends. Those are like the other friends. Right.
Right. Your real friends.
Yeah. You're telling your real friends. So anyways.
So, I mean, this kind of really cuts into like what Verizon is doing right now, because Verizon, as we said last week, they were looking at doing a streaming service and joining like the Sling TV ranks. Yeah, they are doing this quick because it's already in beta. Like they're already contacting like random. I don't know how they do it, because anytime Verizon has like some offering, it's just they start like right now they're doing 5G testing. It's just they'll randomly contact customers and ask them if they want to join in.
Hey, Verizon, if you're listening, got a couple beta testers.
Yeah, actually, like
I'd love to test some of their stuff
out. The people who like the online community of, because like there's a bunch of like reporters and stuff I talk to online about this stuff. Like they hate the fact that I like Verizon.
Oh. But I mean, at some point you gotta like one of the ISPs. You gotta pick
one of them.
You have to have internet service. I'm not saying I love them. I'm just saying I can eat this shit sandwich with mustard or with ketchup.
Well, yeah, it's like
right, and I prefer mustard.
It's like the South Park episode. It's like you can choose between a shit sandwich or a giant douche.
Right. And that's it, right? And I'm picking the douche, right? I don't know. I don't know who you pick in that scenario.
Yeah, it's bad, but you got to pick one.
But you got to pick one. So,
but with Verizon,
of them, I think Verizon's the lesser of evils
right now. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like it's one of the things. It's like I'll root for the underdog And it's the funny part is Verizon being an underdog here.
Yeah,
But
because they're gigantic.
they're huge, but it's like AT&T. I think they're like
they're very well positioned. They are very well.
So right
positioned.
now, I'm kind of like rooting for Verizon. But if Verizon like kind of goes, he starts going in too much, then I'll probably start rooting for someone else.
But I don't. I mean, with DirecTV and everything,
I really just want competition.
Yeah,
is what I'm saying. So I'm going to go with Verizon because I think that they have probably the best chance to stick it to AT&T.
Yeah,
out of everybody in the market right now, and most of that's due to their wireless.
Yeah, I totally agree.
But I mean, if it starts getting if they start getting too big for their britches, I'll probably start rooting for, I don't know, T-Mobile, even though I think they're like the Guy Fieri of.
Yeah, you said that last week.
Yeah,
I actually totally. I think it is completely apt. Completely apt.
Yeah, because you got your you got like Wolfgang Puck.
Sure. Yeah.
You got like
very refined.
Well, you got like Anthony Bourdain.
Yep.
I guess that would be like your AT&T and your Verizon.
Sure.
And then you got Guy Fieri.
I
AKA
mean, like,
T-Mobile.
And don't get me wrong. I like diners, drive-ins, and dives.
Yeah, but
tell me if Guy Fieri couldn't design a mobile phone logo, it wouldn't be hot pink. I mean, come on. I know that.
Like, it's like Scarfin' USA is kind of like.
Yeah, it's just. And like, I like him. I think he's funny. I think he does a good show. But he's totally the T-Mobile of like the chef world.
Right. So. Yeah, so if you're one of those lucky beta testers out there, if you got called, write in, let us know how it's going.
That would be awesome if someone could do that.
So, because we're curious to see, because they don't mention this at all, but actually Verizon does have a streaming service called Go90.
Yeah, which, if I remember correctly,
it's completely
terrible,
shite. It's just terrible. And, like, they don't even really mention it anymore, but it's out there. But this is actually supposed to be like a legit streaming service that'll deliver like real cable TV channels over internet.
Yeah.
So,
well, and they've got some of the existing contract structure, right? And
that's what I mean. It's like all these companies have they know the people.
And that's what a lot of this, like when you go, hey, what takes so long for this to get done? A lot of it's just like the rights, right? It's getting everyone to agree and sign the contract.
Yeah, well, there's that, and there's also like the internal struggle of like changing culture within a company and saying like, we're going to do this now. Because you got a bunch of people there that are sitting there working on the cable end that are just like, well, they want to kind of keep their jobs. And you got guys making millions of dollars who are running these divisions that just don't want to let go.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely truth to that. The one thing I would say with that is you can overcome a lot of that by spinning off divisions, right? Yeah. You can't overcome like the other company not being willing to agree to terms. Like all you can do is either eat it, right? And agree to their terms.
Yeah, but
wait.
If you can make a profit, like if you're a company and you can make a profit doing like a la carte, just like direct selling to customers, then why not? What's happening is you have these. It's like an onion of problems here, like multiple layers.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Because you have these content companies that own like one or two decent channels, but they're forcing cable companies to buy like a bundle of like 7 or 8 channels. Like you have to, if you want AMC, then you have to take all this other crap too. And
yeah, I mean, like what it reminds me of is like back in the day when everybody was hopping into the like making a computer market, right? Like, so you got HP was one of the big dogs.
Yeah, all the IBM clones.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden you had everybody go, oh wait, no, we want to make software. So all the big hardware guys started gobbling up software companies, and then they said, oh no, we want to have a consulting company, and so they gobbled up consultants, right? And then they realized, hey, wait, that was a horrible idea.
Right, yeah.
Right? And so now you go look at HP. What do? Well, they got an itty-bitty consulting company relative to the rest of their size, right? They largely make computers and printing solutions.
Yeah, because
and
you
that's
can
what they do.
concentrate all your effort there. You
And
make a buttload of money
they
on
make
that
a
stuff,
lot of money.
and let somebody else do the consulting.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, consulting's a high margin business, but it's not easy to spin that up, and it's certainly not easy to smush those two cultures together.
Right.
Right? So better, I mean, like, to me, like, best case scenario, and this is what I was arguing earlier to what I think is going to happen with Comcast. Either it's a full-on split, right? Or a divestiture where they sell off the assets. So, like, either they spin it off, start another company, sell the assets, like GE did with a lot of their stuff.
Right.
Because GE, like General Motors,
General Electric,
that's
yeah.
GM.
Yeah.
Jeesh.
They bring good things to life.
Yes. Where, they're known for making things.
Yeah.
Well, they used to be one of the largest
Well, that's funny.
financial companies.
You like GE's, like, you don't even hear about them anymore.
No, because you know what they're doing? Making big-ass engines for airplanes and stuff. Right? And it's a huge margin business. They do great work. They have assets on the balance sheet.
They just
can
dropped
borrow.
their whole, like, consumer product market.
You know what they sold? They sold a huge portion of their portfolio that was just financial assets.
Mm-hmm.
And it was literally, they were one of the largest financial companies in the country. And so they sold all that stuff off, in bits and pieces. And so, like, I think that's going to happen in these markets. And it's not because, like, it can't possibly work, but it's really, really hard.
I mean, yeah, we can only hope that they see the light too, and they just start, separating the content from the tubes. Because really, that's all we're saying here. In a nutshell, we just think that the communications mechanism should be completely separate from the stuff that's being delivered over that communications mechanism.
Makes sense to me.
All right, so enough with the disguised net neutrality talk. We're gonna go in. Let's talk about AirWave. A lot of people were excited about AirWave. AirWave is it's an antenna that the thing that most people hate about antennas is wiring them up. So Mohu had the great idea to just say, let's stick the tuner with the antenna, the TV tuner with the antenna, and wirelessly connect it to your home network and send that signal over your router, so you could get a device, like a Roku or whatever, stick the Mohu app on it, and the Mohu app will actually just watch the live TV from the antenna.
Yeah, so I mean, I'll give it to him. It's a great idea, but I got lots of great ideas. Like, I've got this one where I really want to turn lead into gold, but I haven't figured it out.
You can do that. You can do that. Actually,
Yeah.
you throw, like, and you can scientifically do that. The problem is you have to bombard it with so much gamma radiation that it's not worth the money to do it.
I kind of want to hit you with the golf club. So my point is, I don't know how they did this. I find this fascinating.
It's pretty amazing. Like, and it's similar to, like, because HD Home Run, what's the company? Silicon Dust has the HD Home Run, and it's similar, but you already have to have an antenna,
right?
And you plug your antenna into it, and then you hook that to the router,
which is still cool.
It is, but it's kind of eliminating that middle piece here, and it's just you have an antenna, and the tuner's in the antenna. It translates the signal into TCP/IP, and then it just goes over your network. They just announced the date on when that's going to hit. Originally, I think they were a little bit optimistic, and they said it was going to happen in the spring. We only have a couple of weeks left in spring. They're saying Labor Day weekend is when they're going to be released.
It's not that far off.
Well, no, it's like, it's in September, so a couple months. And the people out there, because there's a lot of them, a lot of people have been asking about this because they don't want to sit there and deal with running cable through their house to hook up an antenna. This will alleviate all of that. And you can stick them anywhere. That's the great part about it. Like, now, I don't know if it's going to be, I don't know if you're going to put it outside, because I think they're pitching it as like an attic indoor type thing, but we'll see.
Oh, okay.
We'll see.
I was going to ask you, like, what about those folks that like live in an apartment building? Like, because what I used to have to do when I lived in the district, like Washington D.C., is I had like rabbit ears,
Right, yeah.
and it was okay, but not great. And I was just curious if something like this helps with that.
Well, I mean, it will, because you don't have to worry about, you can't, because in an apartment you can't just like rip the walls out and start sticking cabling in.
This is
Right.
my point,
Right. So this will definitely help, because you'll be able to position it in the best location, whether it be your apartment, your house, your RV, whatever.
Right.
Like, you can just stick it anywhere in there, and you'll be able to watch TV because it'll just wirelessly communicate with your network.
And it probably helps with having multiple televisions better than like.
Well, you're still tuner dependent.
Okay, so you need multiple tuners.
Well, that's what we'll find out, how many tuners are going to be in this thing when it comes out. But I'm assuming, since they're pitching it as like an indoor antenna, that it's going to be like a 1-to-1.
Okay.
So, but I mean, it's still as long as you have the app, you can put the app on multiple TVs. It's just one app will be able to utilize it at a time, I think, is kind of how it'll work.
Well, still, that's not too bad.
Nah.
I mean, like, for those of us that like, when I was living in an apartment, I was a single guy, right? Like, so I was never in more than one room at a time.
Right.
It was
it's hard to.
It's kind of physics, right? Like,
yeah, I mean, so they're gonna have apps for Amazon Fire TV, Apple TV, Chromecast, the entire Roku lineup, iOS, Android, most web browsers. So it's pretty much, they're going to be covering all the bases with their apps there. So like any cord cutter pretty much will be able to grab this thing and use it. They're going to what's kind of cool about it too is it'll put everything in one interface. So like you'll be able to watch.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, because I mean, you can stick if you have a Roku, you could stick this Mohu app on your Roku, and then you're watching live TV
it's
over
just
your
another
Roku.
app.
Right. At that point, you've appified your OTA TV. It's kind of what you've
That's not bad at all.
Yeah, and that's why I think a lot of people are excited about this. But like, so I posted this on the blog because they came up with a release date. And lo and behold, someone comments and they're like, well, a lot of this is already on Mohu's website. I hope you're going to like give us more information. And I'm like, well, yeah, when they release it.
I mean, sorry, I don't have listening devices in Mohu's board.
I know. I mean, I wish I did. I could just find out, like, I'll send my spies out there. But actually, I called
Mental
Mohu.
note.
Right.
Get spies in Mohu.
Yeah, first, get spies.
Second, deploy them to Mohu.
Right. But no, I talked to Mohu, and they're going to send me one when it's ready, which will be close to Labor Day weekend, so I can test it out and let you guys know. But it just made me laugh. It's like I'm sitting there, because I got the release date, a lot of people asked, so I wrote something up, and I get criticized. They're like, oh, well, this is already on Mohu's website. And it's like, well, yeah.
It's like
but
Droopy the dog.
I know. Well, that's the voice I use. That's the voice I use when people criticize me.
Well, and honestly, like, I get it. I mean, like, we're all eager. We want to hear more about, like, various things we're interested in. But, part of what we're trying to do here is take and consolidate, publicly available content.
Right. Because, I mean, do you guys want to go out there and just, isn't it easier for us to check all these websites every day and then once a week tell you what's happening instead of everyone going out there and
Heck,
doing it?
I do it. I just go to Dennis. What are we talking about this week? Come on.
So yeah. So you wanted to talk about this FCC study that came out about broadband in rural America.
Yeah, so it's called Mapping Broadband Health in America 2017.
Oh, so hot off the presses.
Right. Yeah,
where's our spinny newspaper graphic?
So there's a couple really interesting things. So I'm going to give you like Cliff Notes. It's a 1-pager report. You can read like the summary.
Yeah, and we can put it in the show notes. So.
Yeah. And like basically if you're interested in the topic, like you can go and just Google it and you can find the actual site where they map all this out so you can see the particular counties they're talking about. But what they're doing in this study is they're mapping two different things. Broadband connectivity and where there are large gaps and where there are particularly bad health statistics.
Yeah. And we talk about this a lot on
Yeah.
the podcast, how there's a correlation between, health and poverty.
Yeah.
And then poverty and broadband.
Yeah.
And how, when you look at the data, if there's broadband there, things tend to be better when there's not.
Yeah. So there's a couple, that's exactly right. There's a couple things to draw from this study before you even read the statistics. Like, one is there's no obvious causality between broadband and obesity, which is one of those things.
Right.
Despite looking at me, right? Like, I have broadband connectivity and I got a belly, but that ain't the point we're making here, right? Like, so there's no obvious, and there's, type 2 diabetes and all those types of things. Like, there's no obvious connection. But like Dennis was saying, what's interesting about it is, step one, it's this, they call it a double burden. And I'll get into the statistics real quick in a second. But this double burden is basically these communities that have very low levels of broadband access, and then particularly bad health statistics, have two strikes against them, right? Like, two things that make life generally more difficult. They're predominantly rural communities, and there's a couple statistics that summarize that.
Some glaring statistics there, too.
It's really like...
Because in an urban area, it's like... Was it like... Because you said the double...
I'll give you exactly what it is.
So the double whammy here.
So the double whammy is that almost half of the U.S. counties, and there's about 3,000 counties in the United States, the majority of them don't have a lot of people in them.
Right.
But almost half of the U.S. counties have high burdens of chronic disease. So, for example, like diabetes.
Right. Which is like, it'll ruin your day.
Well, it's pretty well documented that high levels of diabetes in a community, type 2 diabetes, is tied to, general health conditions that are driven by low levels of income. Right. Now, it's not lockstep, but there's a lot of... Yeah,
the data shows that if you see a lot of type 2 diabetes, you probably have a lot of other income issues that you're dealing with in that community.
Exactly. So, high burdens of chronic disease, as well as a need for greater broadband connectivity. That half of the counties represents 36 million people that live in those counties.
Yeah, and there were...
So again, that's a lot. That's only like 12% of the country.
Right. And they were talking about in urban areas that have like these chronic diseases and like no broadband, it's like 5%.
Yeah, this is a crazy statistic, right? Like, so the rural urban gap appears to be growing is one of the things they show here, where it's over 60% of rural America, an increase of 8% since 2015, live in double burden counties, while only 5% of urban America.
Yeah, so that is glaring.
It is a dramatically rural issue, right? And so one of the reasons I want to call this out, right, is it's a fascinating study. And again, these communities, because we talk about internet-related issues, there's the obvious connection there, and all the things we said about income. But also, one of the things that is alluded to in the study, but not directly cited, is that a lot of public health initiatives that are being put forward by federal, state, and local governments are internet-based.
Right.
And the problem with that is if you have really shitty connectivity, it means those things are only going to be so effective, right? Like, so that gap is likely to grow. So I believe it was in April. a bunch of senators.
This is hysterical. Like, it's hysterical. Like, it's sad.
It's gallows humor.
It is. It's gallows because it's sad for the people that live in these areas.
It really is. And I got family in some of these areas.
Right. Me too.
Like,
but the lack of understanding the constituency that they represent.
Yeah,
it is beyond ridiculous.
Well, so
hysterical is the wrong word. It's just crazy.
Yeah, it's so what happened, to give you the background on what Dennis is talking about, because I sent him this article, like I sent him the study and then I sent him this article and was like, I'll just watch him react.
Right.
And with me, it was steam coming out of my ears. With Dennis, it was more like eyes went crossed, like cartoon styles.
Yeah.
And so it was like, one of those things. And what happened was in April, a bunch of senators went to Chairman Pai.
Our esteemed chairman of the FCC.
Yeah. I believe one of them was from Minnesota and one of them was from Iowa, and there were a few others. So large states that have very large, they have many rural counties.
Yes.
I won't say they have large rural populations because that's kind of the point, right?
Right.
There aren't large rural populations. But they said, hey, we really appreciate the fact that you're trying to push for rural broadband.
Right.
But we're hearing a lot that prices aren't going down at all.
Yeah.
And so... Again,
so the disconnect there is just like,
and I just wanted to sit everyone down with the chalkboard. Oh wow, I just dated myself. Whiteboard, iPad, and do like some basic economics graphs and just be like, okay, so lack of competition and lack of incentive to put competition in place because of population density,
yes,
right?
Corporate cheerleader pie can rah big cable all he wants,
and they're just not going to go put lines out there,
no,
right? Like, and so it screams for either one, government intervention, right, in terms of what we've been talking about a lot back in the day,
local level
municipality, like internet. Or incentivizing corporate interests to move into rural areas with, various different incentives.
Because here's the thing.
But it has to be active, is my point.
Okay. It's to the point, and we've said this before, internet is getting to the point where it's like electricity.
Yeah.
Like you almost, in America, because you almost have to have it.
Well, in let me pause you.
To keep up.
Yeah, let me pause you there for a second because that is an extremely apt analogy. And we went through a period of time where we actively used the federal government to electrify the country.
Right.
Right? We did things like the Hudson Valley,
Tennessee
Valley Commission and so on. And we did the same in the Pacific Northwest. And we laid because
it gets to the point, like, it's not profitable for some of these companies to wire this stuff up. I mean, it might be in the future with some of the new technology coming out, but that's not a complete reality yet. That stuff is still being fleshed out. So it might be a while before we're able to, like, just wirelessly send internet out to rural areas. But until then, we need to do something about it because these people are suffering. I mean,
well, and you can actually make the argument in many of these cases that the benefits of getting broadband access to rural communities, one, will increase the tax base, two, will likely, and this is where it gets a little iffier, improve general health.
It will. I mean, I think it's tertiary, but it will because
services become a little more available.
You get broadband internet, and all of a sudden, you've immediately, instead of having to walk all around your rural area community, which is miles and miles and miles to find a job, or because there's no mass transit, you can get online and possibly, I don't know, find something.
I mean,
out
not
there.
to be base about this,
but you could go on. There's Craigslists. There's stuff. There's opportunity out there that you would not see otherwise.
The use case has already been proven out. A guy won a Nobel Prize, for God's sake, with microfinance in Bangladesh, all based on the fact that with a wireless network where people could get a single cell phone that could get on the internet, with a little bit of money, they could, participate in the global economy, and it would start improving their health and lifting them out of poverty and all these wonderful things.
You can live in rural America. If you have a connection to the internet, you can get on eBay.
Yeah.
You can start selling things on eBay. You can start, like with a little bit of startup money, like you saved you do whatever, you saved a little bit of money.
Yeah,
you buy something and then you just start selling it online. Like that's possible. And
I got friends that have done it.
Right. So it just opens up a whole world of opportunity, and it's a world of opportunity that people in urban areas are already participating in, and that digital gap is just growing.
Yeah,
until we do something about this.
And this is the reason why I thought it was worthwhile to bring it up, is that as an issue, like a public policy type issue, this is the kind of thing that if ideology rather than data is what drives our decisions from a policy standpoint, which is what it looks like is happening with the FCC. What happens is we're going to try this, deregulation without incentivizing corporate America to going out to rural America.
Right.
And it's going to fail. And then everyone's going to just go, well, it's a lost cause.
Yeah, because that's what happens. It's like they'll see the plan and they'll say, okay, this is what it was supposed to affect, and then it doesn't work. And instead of saying maybe it was a bad plan to begin with, they just say,
it must be impossible.
Well, yeah, nope, that won't work. We shouldn't even worry about it.
And so that's why I'm like, again, we've said this before, is like, I would love to see the data that Chairman Pai is basing his analysis on. And it just has never been put out there. It's never going to be.
No, probably not.
And so this is just, I'm sorry, I'm getting all hot under the collar.
Well, no, I mean, it bothers. I mean, it's sad.
But I haven't said it in a while, but fuck these guys. Because that's it.
And I'm
stopping there. Fuck these guys.
I can't top that.
So you wanted to talk about something else.
QED.
Yeah, exactly.
The proof is in the pudding. Or the proof of the pudding is in the eating.
I don't know.
I think that's how that goes.
I don't know.
Yeah, so finally, what we wanted to get to today was, and we talk about, like, Kodi seems to be a hot topic. Like, everyone, I mean, that's probably, like, one of the biggest questions I get is about Kodi, which, what episode was that? Was that, like, episode 6?
Yeah, I was going to say 6, 7,
yeah,
8.
It's back there.
Something like that.
But we did an episode on Kodi, which is basically a media center where it aggregates all of your video content, TV, movies. Like if you have a bunch of DVDs, you've put them on some type of digital media, and it brings them all into one area. But furthermore, it also will aggregate with
external content.
Yeah, internet content. So what's happening is people are building these, they're called plugins, and they'll allow content that necessarily unlicensed content, stuff that people should be paying for, or like at least
unlicensed is the nice way to say it.
It is, yeah, it's pirated. So and we've said, like, there's no law in America that says it's illegal. But there's no law that says that it is legal, and it's never really been challenged in court yet. No one's really brought it up,
and
oddly enough, or it has been brought up and no court's just taken it.
Any of this stuff is similar enough to, let's say, general publishing law, to where I think you're just waiting for a judge to say, "Yep, that's more or less this statute."
Yeah, and that's kind of what is happening here, because our friends over at Dish Network, owners of Sling TV, just decided they just actually filed a lawsuit against Zem TV. Now it was it's one of the bigger add-ons in Kodi, one of the more popular ones, because it pretty much grabs a lot of content you would see on cable and just shows it to you for free over Kodi.
Just
So they put together a lawsuit in a Texas federal court. Basically, they've it's not like that this is like you know, out of the blue, because Dish actually hit them with multiple cease and desist orders to stop.
So can I just a really quick story? I was on a business trip once when I used to be a consultant, and I was at the hotel bar with like a colleague and like, you know, or two different ones. One of the guys was a little wild, and like for whatever reason, the bartender was like I gotta get out of here. Just set your glasses behind the bar when you're done. And so I'm
that's
just
trusting.
like, yeah, exactly. I was like, okay, and you know, he leaves. My buddy just starts walking behind the bar and filling up his beer, and I'm like, that's what's happening with these apps, right? Like that's what they're doing. They're just like, yeah. Drink whatever you want. I don't care. You're just waiting for the owner to see you in the videotape and be like, that guy owes me money.
Yeah, and because that's if you're in that situation, it's kind of like if you walked into a store and the tip jar is just kind of sitting there and you don't see anyone around and there's no cameras. Do you take money out of the tip jar?
Yeah. It's kind of like if one of your colleagues stops over a bar and starts filling up.
Right. I mean, that's really what that's kind of what it is.
And I'm like, and what I said to him, I said, hey, dude, it's exactly what I said on episode 6 or 7 or 8 or whatever. I was like, I'm not the cops, but don't pour me one.
Yeah, because that's what I'm not a tattletale, you know? I'm not going to sit there and rant people out.
You want another beer? Yeah. Snitches get stitches,
That's
Dennis.
true. You know, that originated in good old Baltimore.
Yeah.
Carmelo Anthony, basically.
Snitches get stitches.
He said that. And then he said in that video, you know, oh, now, Christ, now we're going to get, you know, tweeted by Carmelo Anthony. I don't think he's happy about that. But no, he did. He came up with that term. That's a Baltimore original.
That sounds very Baltimore.
Yeah, we've brought you great things like The Wire, Keepers, and Snitches Get Stitches.
Well, and the Star Spangled Banner. That was kind of a big one.
Yeah, I guess that was within water.
That's Fort McHenry. There's literally a tunnel.
Well, you know, the Star Spangled Banner was just a poem. The actual music is an English drinking song.
I'm going to throw a rock at you. Yeah.
I'm not. It's a pop
I
song.
know. We all know that. Literally 700,000 people in this area know that. So I digress. What you were saying, Kodi.
So and Kodi, they were on they were out. They actually, that's the bad part about this. They're really trying to get out in front of this,
and they're trying to help their users because most of their users aren't trying to.
They're just trying to make a piece of software that'll allow you to aggregate content into a media center. I mean, and they believe in like open source, so they don't want to, you know. They just want to put their code out there, and they don't want to stop, because their whole philosophy is if we put the code out there, people will develop and they'll just make the product better,
which is generally good. So you got a couple of bad actors,
a bunch of bad actors.
Well,
it's a lot because this is really powerful technology.
Yeah,
and people are just out there writing plugins to kind of grab unlicensed content from all over the world and just kind of beam it right to whatever you've installed Kodi on.
I mean, it's really easy to take all the DVDs you got down, rip them all, throw them out on some torrent,
right?
Charge everybody a nickel to go watch them.
Some of these, though, are so intelligent that they're just going out there and they're just looking for stuff, scraping it, and then just put it out there.
I'm saying a dumb guy like me can figure out how to do that.
Right. Yeah, but these are just this is like some really sophisticated stuff. And as we've always said, it's going to come down to a court case.
Yeah.
Because Congress, I mean, they don't understand.
They
They don't get it. They don't understand.
They think
this
it's a
stuff.
series of tubes.
Yeah, they just. I mean, you're. No offense out there to any congressmen that listen, but
I intend to offend with that one.
yeah, but it doesn't take much to be a congressman these days.
No.
So it really
No,
doesn't.
Have you looked at Congress?
So they punt because they don't know what to do with this stuff.
Nope.
So it's going to be up to the courts, and I watch this one closely because it's going to set a precedent.
Yeah. And once that's the way our system works. Once that precedent is set, the other courts will point to it, and that will be that.
Right. And then before you know it, sure, this is what's going to happen. The people that make American law only works within America. And the funny part about this is how many congressmen don't understand this.
Yeah.
The internet has no national border.
Nope.
I could buy a server and stick it in wherever and run whatever I want out of it.
Yep.
And that's what people will do. You can you can sit there and say, if you're on the content end or the pirating end or the grabbing the unlicensed stuff and putting it out there, you can just go offshore and put it there.
Yeah.
So what do you think is going to happen? They're going to go after the people in the country who are watching this stuff.
Of course. Because
that's where this will end up.
If I'm setting up the torrent, what I'm doing is I'm housing those servers in Bulgaria, and I've got my LLC registered in the Bahamas, right?
Right.
And I'm keeping my bank account in Switzerland.
Right.
Right. And I'm not doing anything in the U.S.
Right. Because that's like how these poker sites run. Because there's so many places that just run, they'll just, run it offshore. They'll stick everything offshore. Online gambling is illegal in many, many states, but they can't do anything about it because you can just hop online and run it through Bitcoin or PayPal or whatever. Yeah. So Dish is actually, they're suing them for, and I don't know, I guess they're counting infringement by people who, I don't know if it's per view or per download or what, but they're suing them for $150,000 per infringement.
American dollars?
American dollars. And the person, the MTV operator who is only known as Shani or Shani_08. I don't know if they're going to have the bankroll to cover that.
So can Shani change their account name and get out of this?
Well, that's the funny part. It's because since the way it's being reported is they're only known as that. So
who knows?
How are they going to track them down?
I don't know. Run, Shani.
I know, seriously. Shani needs to pack their bags and head to Bermuda.
Shani's already in Sri Lanka and just publishing this stuff out.
Yeah, but I mean, this is the first. It's so funny that this is the first case of this.
Yeah.
Where they've actually, because I'm surprised it hasn't happened yet.
I'm surprised it wasn't settled with Napster back in the day.
Yeah, I know. Because it's really the same thing.
It's exactly the same thing. And that's what it comes down to is content's content, right? And so somebody owns the rights to that content and someone is providing it. And if they don't have, as they say on the baseball broadcast, written and expressed permission, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
Right? Then, someone's probably going to sue someone, right? Is what it comes down to.
Yeah, and that's what's happening here, and it's probably going to set up some precedent for what's going to happen in the future.
When did I become such a square? Well,
I mean,
have I always been this way? I don't know.
Well, I mean, when it comes to I don't know. I don't want to be that. This horse has been beaten.
Yeah,
and on why I think we should be careful when it comes to watching pirated content.
Yeah, and the only thing I would rehash is just watch yourself.
Yeah, be careful, and that's really what it is. This is more of I'm not telling you what to do. I'm telling you to be careful.
Yeah, see the VPN episode.
Seriously, yeah. If you're gonna do this stuff, grab a VPN. Keep yourself kind of hidden, because at some point they're gonna realize these providers of this stuff will just go offshore, and the only at that point, someone's going to have to pay.
Yeah.
And they're going to go after people who are consuming it.
Yep.
So no one is half the battle, people. G.I. Joe.
A real American hero?
He's there. All right. Thanks for listening, everybody. We'd appreciate it if you let all your friends know about us. Tell them to check out Grounded Reason Podcast on iTunes, iPhone podcast app, or, wherever you can listen to podcasts. I hear we're in your grocer's freezer. If you're enjoying the show, please pick up your iPhone and hit that subscribe button. It's how they rank podcasts, and it's how, podcasts are ranked. So the higher we go in the rankings, more people listen, longer we'll do this thing. If you're digging the show, please remember to leave us a review on iTunes. If you don't like the show, then don't leave a review on iTunes. We don't really need it.
Yeah, that just makes us...
we'd like all 5 stars if you could. That'd be nice. We'd be really indebted to you. Joel and I would really appreciate it. If you have any questions or comments, you can follow us on Twitter at Grounded Reason. You can send us an email. The email address is podcast@groundedreason.com. You can go check out our Facebook page, go and join the conversation there, throw a question up, we'll answer it. Or you can go to groundedreason.com, latest episode or relevant article, leave a comment. I'll be sure to answer it. Again, everyone, thanks for listening. This is Dennis Restaro.
And this is Joel Reeves.
And everyone out there, have a great week.
Take care, everyone.